we live in a culture of entitlement. So they referenced exposure and education, which are always good factors. They're good precipitating factors for people who are going to be successful and embrace change. But it's also, you have to be imbued with purpose too, right? Because no matter how much exposure you get, no matter how much education you get, if you have no purpose, you will never follow through with it.
We're afraid of change, right? Because we want to stay the same. We feel like we're missing a piece of ourselves, but replace the word change with growth. Replace the word change with evolution, right? Because then people won't be afraid of upgrading, won't be afraid of updating. So for me, education is the most important, because when I look across the spectrum of how all people build their wealth, it's based on what they know.
Yeah, so the first power principle was education. Let's go to the next one, exposure.
Exposure. Exposure is how vast your mind will actually be, right? Once you are exposed to something and your mind continues to grow, it will never collapse again. See, the universe expands at the rate which light are reaching areas that it never reached before. So that means that when the universe is getting expanded, it's based on light reaching new places. It's the same thing that happened in your mind. Once you gain enlightenment, now your brain has been sparked in new ways. Now it cannot be closed again. Now you've seen 3 black men on stage with the most dapperest attire on this planet Earth teaching about financial education. You've been exposed to something that will change the foundation of your reality that you walk on every single day.
Stop being afraid to change. The two things that stood out to me that he broke up was exposure and education. Exposure and education. I put exposure first, even though I know he said education, because I think that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to have exposure because they're living within their comfort zone. I recently had the opportunity to change careers, so to speak. And it's different being on the side of putting yourself out there. Because when you're on the side where you're comfortable, like most people are, and when you have conversations with people, they have a tendency to try to keep you inside that box. But hard-headed me, and sometimes being hard-headed is good. Sometimes having your own mind, being able to lead, being able to take risks, being able to understand what comes with that risk, it could be a good thing. Don't have to be a bad thing. The only way that you're going to be able to really have true experience is if you change your environment, change the people around you, change your behavior, change your habits. Just change. And guess what? If it don't work, because we live in the life that we live in, you have the opportunity to go back to doing whatever it is that you was doing, if you so choose to. But stop being afraid to change. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Who wants to go first?
I think to like identify that there needs to be changes made is the biggest part, because if you don't like really know that there's something wrong in the situation or the way you behave, you're not going to want to seek help or seek like better understanding of like the situation, you know. I hope that.
I don't know that I agree with that, right? Because sometimes exposure to something new is what kind of like down creates changes, not even necessarily conscious ones, right? So sometimes when you hang out with somebody new and your circle starts to change, you start to adapt some of the behaviors that they have, and all of a sudden, oh, like, you know, I'm managing my money differently because I'm hanging around people that manage their money differently. Like, I didn't even realize this was a problem, but look at me already changing because I've been exposed to people who move a little bit differently, right? So I don't know. I think it's a catch-22 where sometimes it needs to be conscious. And I think other times it just happens because your environment has changed where you don't even realize it until the changes occurred.
So I think that change is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Most people get comfortable in their ways. All of us do. So change brings a level of discomfort. But what I learned is the best things happen when you are just uncomfortable and you change certain things about yourself, change the people you're around. I'm on this real big tip right now. Like, if you don't add to my life, I'm just gonna eliminate you. And I know that might sound kind of jacked up, but like if I'm not gaining anything from you or you're not gaining anything from me, there's no reason why we need to talk. There's no reason why we need to be friends. I'm good on that. And that's a change, and it hurts because I'm like kind of just letting people go. But at the same time, it's good for me, and I'm in a more peaceful space. And that's change.
Okay.
Curves, like that's so crazy you said that, because when I was in school, college, I wanted to change my major, and I was instructed to do so because I was like better at that subject. But however, like I told my professor, like I'm scared, I'm gonna fail. There's a fear, right? But he told me like not all fears are bad, right?
Right.
You're supposed to have a little bit of fear sometimes when you're jumping into something unknown. So yeah.
And your body just tries to like naturally protect yourself. So like when you try to do something new, or you're thinking about doing something new, you naturally get nervous and scared about it because you're like, oh shit. But at the same time, like your body's just trying to keep you in your comfort zone. And that could also keep you where the hell you're at for a very long time, instead of just popping off and trying it and you don't know what could come out of it.
Okay.
I would have to say, for me in my life, I love change, and I'll say it from a spiritual area. It seems like every time it's time for me to change, almost like a season, I get really uncomfortable. Like, and I feel like it's God's urge to say, okay, like something's got to shake up, something's got to, And normally, I know where I'm getting uncomfortable, and I'm getting like antsy, like this isn't working. It's time to evolve. It's time to elevate. It's time to switch things up. And it's like that timer, whether it's career wise, whether it's in my, everyday life or routine. Like, okay, something isn't clicking like it's supposed to, or it's clicked for so long, but now it's time for things to evolve and change. And so I need to change something about my processes and protocols, or the way I look at life. And also growth and change is natural as a progression of life. If you kind of keep that as an element that you need to be aware of, doing something for so long. Some people stay in jobs and careers for 35 years, and some people have had 4 careers in their lifetime in the span of 35 years. So, I mean, different things, it growth and change, it definitely goes across all spans of life, from career, relationships, family, home life, our goals and ambitions. But for me, it's that timer. No matter what I'm doing, it's like, okay, whether I've been doing something for a year or something's been working for 10 years, it's always an urge and a personal timer internally that goes off, where it's like, okay, I'm ready. And I'm never, I know people that are afraid of change, and I know most people are afraid of change, but I really embrace it. And I think that's just a quirk of my personality. Like, I like I like new things. That's just my perspective.
All right. She critique. Shan Monet.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting here just trying to figure out what to say.
Oh,
But,
man. I saw it on your face. I saw you was like, oh, she's trying to.
I'm slow to change. I'm one of those people. I've been doing the same thing. I'm like a routine kind of girl. I just am. Been with the same job for 20 years. I don't like change, but I don't like change with things that work. When things don't work, I'm quick to change. So I think that everybody like I think that it's about what moves you. Some people are financially driven, so they're like, oh, I want to make more money, do this. I'm more so of home driven, so those are the things that I like to change around because that's my focus. So I think it all depends on the person, but exposure is absolutely, I think exposure and education kind of go hand in hand, because you'll find that the people who are exposed to the most are the most educated because they learn through their exposure. So I agree with what everybody was saying on the panel about the comfort zone. I think that was Miss Curves, and that also somebody said something about I can't remember the second part, but I agree with most of everything that was said about change. But I'm one person who does not like change.
Can I ask you a quick question? Does change scare you?
No, I just it doesn't scare me. I'm a very homely person.
Okay.
So I'm not like that person who's like, I've shared my story plenty of time like that. Oh, I gotta see this. I gotta see, I don't know why. I'm just not. And then the things that I do want to see, most people find that to be boring. So I'm just.
So you find what works for you and you stick with it.
I find comfort in that. Yes.
Okay.
So in regards to change at home, like, are you changing like the interior, the furnitures? You got to change up like the look of everything. So
How
you're
I
not used to
move, how I raise
staying.
my kids,
Hmm.
my home life. Those are things that I enjoy. Is more people are more external. They like to go around and do. I'm more in the home. that energy some people put on getting out, I put it inside. It's weird, I know.
Yeah, it's so crazy because changing to be that person. I'm like at home, like if someone is knocking on my door, it better be Amazon or somebody that, like, I don't really have like a lot of companies. Like, I'm just so in my bubble. But it's so crazy when you say, like, when your season hit and like something is about to change, it's like everything around you just crumble. Um and some people, they kind of sit back and allow the change to not happen, because it can be right there. Like a lot of people said, like, you might be further ahead than behind than you think. So your success, your plans, your dreams, your goal can be like right next door, but you're afraid to get there. And it's so crazy because when I started to get into the panels and things like that, all of a sudden everything crashed. MacBook crash. I was at the mall, the Galleria Mall. They was stealing things out of people's cars. Like my $2,000 camera that I had just purchased, stolen. Like everything
I
around
still
me.
not your car.
Yeah, at the Galleria Mall.
You had it out in the open.
Yeah, I did. Well, it was no. I had it under. I had it like on top of, like, under a jacket on the floor. And they had stole and like they was just breaking and bust the windows out of everybody's car. It was just a big mess. Like it was a lot, but it was but I wanted this change for like my career, like something that I always wanted to do, because I just went the easy route, get into education and things like that. It was easy. It was like, this is something, even going to school, I always wanted to be an engineer. I always wanted to do like things like that. But I just say, I don't want to do that. Sometimes people just need like that push. You don't even need friends and things like that. Honestly, you just need a plan. You don't have, like, a lot of people seek validation from others to feel like they need approval for this change. I didn't want approval. I didn't have to go ask my dad, you think I should do this? I didn't have to go ask friends, should I do this? A lot of people try to seek with other people about something that they want to do with their own life. And that's what stopped a lot of people from being successful, to be the next doctor, to be the next this and that, because a lot of people seek other people about their life. So I just feel like, don't be afraid to change, like, for you. Like, you don't have to ask no one for permission, especially a human. Just ask God. I believe in God, so I just ask the higher power. I'm like, hey, give me confirmation. Is this for me? And I just feel like I'm gonna keep going, even though everything is stolen. If I gotta start back over, I'm just gonna start back over. I'm just gonna do what I need to do to keep my change, the change that I want here. So
Wait, this just happened? They just stole your MacBook? Like this?
this was like, no, that was 2 weeks ago, like 2-3 weeks ago
That's
when
just happened, yeah.
yeah. And my MacBook crashed in the middle of a panel on here on the Lapeef show. Like, it had crashed completely. So
Yeah,
it was like,
that MacBook that you got, how old is it?
That's my baby.
How old is it though?
It's like, this is a 2018.
18. That's not too bad.
Told y'all these Macs be trash.
Man, and it was
No, they're
working.
not trash.
Like, this is my baby. Still, after 2012,
Hey, Trigger Mike, you getting a lot of feed. It's like your feedback is reducing sound on the panel.
Mine.
No, I'm talking about trigger mic.
Oh, yeah, but that's all I gotta say about change. Like, no matter what comes your way, like just keep going. Like, I don't like just keep pushing. Like, and you don't. Sometimes it's best to keep it to yourself. You don't have to ask no one about what you know, with some things you want to do with your life, because sometimes they can be the reason to hold you back. They can say, "Oh, that's not good for you." Like a lot of people saying, "You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this," and I stopped asking. I stopped asking for people's comments, and I stopped asking for people opinions about me and my life. Mm-mm. I'm a change.
Right. Yeah, don't tell people your goals until it's done, right?
I still got feedback.
No, I sound better now.
All right,
I have
bet.
I have a question. What do you guys think about the majority of people being uncomfortable with being uncomfortable?
That is a huge Western problem. So that kind of goes into the answer I had for this particular question. So in this Western society, when we say, if we're going to look at the question as stated, stop being afraid of change, we are going to be the people who are most afraid of it, because we live in a culture of entitlement. So they referenced exposure and education, which are always good factors. They're good precipitating factors for people who are going to be successful and embrace change. But it's also, you have to be imbued with purpose too, right? Because no matter how much exposure you get, no matter how much education you get, if you have no purpose, you will never follow through with it. If you notice, not even just in America, across the world, they're always talking about the top 10 or the top one, right? So it's, no matter where you go, only the top 10% of people are going to accept an opportunity and drive themselves to the fullest to achieve it. And of those 10, only 1% of the time are going to actually achieve it, right? So in America, people are extremely afraid to change, and they won't change until they have no choice, because of what you said, because they're not comfortable being uncomfortable. I can directly attribute my success to being the person in every circle I've ever been in, every competitive arena I've ever been in, is the person who was willing to take discomfort the most. I know this is going to suck. I know the hours are going to be long, and I'm going to outwork all of my peers, and I'm going to let them know I'm outworking them. Therefore, I end up with the best results. So people aren't willing to do that because we live in a culture of entitlement. Now, if you put us up against our peers, right, from other countries, and people like, why are these people outworking us and they whooping our ass out here? It's because they're imbued with purpose that we no longer have, because we got everything, right? We got all the exposure here. Our education is free. They got to pay for it in other countries, right? So, we let all of that access and all of that exposure, we now take it for granted, to where even people that are poor in America have some sense of the entitlement that the government's supposed to give them something. No, get up off your ass and go get it, right? So it gives them that feeling, and that's going to lead to people being afraid of change in any way, shape, or form, because they feel like they won't get something out of it, and they'll actually have to work for it. Right. If you change this, I may no longer be eligible and I'll be exposed. Right. So I feel like that's one of the bigger issues with this.
Trigger Mike, I mean, sorry. When you have a good point, because if you look at the immigration rate in the States and Canada, right, it's much higher. So they like my parents, they're immigrants. They weren't scared of change. My parents moved around the world. Like my dad was, we were in Nigeria, then we went to Dubai, Saudi Arabia. We came here. Like they weren't scared of the change, and we moved so many times. Not saying it was much of a good thing, but it was also in a way, like we learned so much about the other cultures. And I mean, as older, I feel like older generations are more riskier. Like they were willing to take better risks than us now, because we're scared to leave the comfort zone.
Absolutely. They
That's
will
the
definitely
word.
take more risks when you look at what they're coming from. Right. So remember, it's what's the purpose for the change, or what's the eventual goal? If you're completely destitute where you're at, and somebody says change is coming, where it's at, I'm ready to seize the opportunity because I got no choice. right? So people change and are most willing to accept it when they have no choice.
Comfort zone is the big term, because I think a lot of Americans love being in comfort, like, and with that, whatever comfort for comfort to be, right? Because you can be from whatever background, and if you're used to that, then that's a sense of comfort because it's familiar to you. And I think, speaking to your point, Mike, I think people don't want to sacrifice as well. In order to change, a lot of times it's more like, okay, what do I have to give up? What am I going to lose in the meantime in order to get to that change? So me sacrificing whatever, whether it may be time, whether it may be sleep, hours of work or studying or school, to change and better my life or change a relationship or change something about myself, it's like, what am I giving up? So I have to sacrifice. A lot of people don't want to sacrifice. So it's getting out of the comfort zone of what they know to be familiar, as well as what am I going to lose? They're focused on what am I going to lose instead of what am I going to gain.
So that's absolutely correct. You got the golden word in the puzzle, right? Sacrifice. That's why people are afraid to change, because they're not willing to sacrifice anything. The job I just left, my corporate job I just left, I left as a director. All right. And before I got that director's position, I was the youngest person to get it. And everybody that was my direct report was older than me. And they had all these theories about how I got the job and who did I have to sleep with and all this crazy stuff. And when they wrote my bio out, when they made the announcement that I got the job, I got an email from one of my colleagues saying, "Damn, I didn't know you did all that." Because while they were sitting here drinking with each other, going out for drinks, I was doing all the work that they should have been doing. I was talking to the right people, doing work that I wasn't paid for, because I eventually wanted that job. Now, people never ask what it cost me. I did not see my daughter her first year of her life. I had to sacrifice something for that, right? I worked, so I taught in the morning. So I was a instructor at a college. I taught and I did duties on behalf of the university all in my free time. So I taught morning and evening. Everybody know a split shift is hell. And then in the afternoon, I went to meet with doctors, get the students externship, all that stuff on behalf of the school, because I knew when it was time for that director's position, that's what the director is required to do, right? But people never ask what it cost me. You see what I'm saying? So they're never willing to sacrifice to get those results, and that's why they're afraid to change.